What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube, and today I've got some football focus. I want to talk about kind of a few guys here. We'll do the offensive side of the ball today. I want to talk about four guys on the Steelers offense whose position on this team is in jeopardy, or the stock has fallen, or the future looks bleak for them following free agency and the draft. So Pittsburgh now has gone through the main part of free agency. They've drafted their guys. They have their position battles kind of lined up. You know kind of who's definitely on the team, who's kind of new to the team, and who's on the bubble. And I want to talk about four guys who are kind of on the bubble, either for this year or for this coming off season next year. I have three main guys I wanted to focus on, but then I started going through the roster on offense, and I saw a guy that's kind of an honorable mention. So let's talk about these four guys who are in position battles or are fighting for their future or are fighting for their roster spot in a position like that. And the first guy, my honorable mention, the fourth guy I thought of, is Broderick Jones. Now, I don't think Broderick Jones is going to be cut. Obviously, he's in his fourth year. He's on his rookie contract. He's still got some upside, but his spot is definitely in danger. They went out this offseason, and coming into this year, they switched him to his spot that he played in college, where he made the most sense. And he started pretty promising. It seemed like that was his natural spot on the line, like he was kind of ready to show what he could truly do. And then he got hurt again, and he was out for the year. And all of a sudden, Dylan Cook came in with no starting experience, came essentially off the practice squad almost, came in as a depth guy and started for a few games and played really well in a small sample size. Pittsburgh still has Dylan Cook on the roster and went out and drafted a first-round tackle, Max Iachenor, after hearing that Broderick Jones' injury was worse than expected and not picking up his fifth-year option. So while I do think, obviously, he's on a rookie deal, and there's probably there's 10 guys right now that are kind of considered clearly on the roster right now, but I think 9 are going to make it. The guys on the line right now, we got Dylan Cook, Brock Hoffman, Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, Troy Fautanu. Those are our clear kind of day one starters, not counting these new rookies. And then on the bench, you've got Spencer Anderson, Max Iachenor, Jennings Dunker, and Ryan McCollum. I think Ryan McCollum is the odd man out. I think the two rookies, Dunker and Iachenor, eventually become the starters within a few weeks of the regular season. Give them 5-6 weeks, and I think they're starting full-time. Spencer Anderson's a swing guy who's a veteran who can play the extra tackle spot, can also play at guard. And Brock Hoffman, who may lose his job to Dunker eventually, is a guy that can play center. So he's kind of your new backup center, versatility piece, and Ryan McCollum gets cut. So I think Broderick Jones is kind of the ninth man on this roster while he heals from injury. But them drafting a guy in the first round and not picking up his option for the fifth year means that he's likely going to be gone at the end of this season unless he comes back healthy, winds up being a starter and proving himself, whether it's at the tackle spot or he gets moved again somewhere to guard maybe and proves himself. But one way or another, he's got to get healthy and be an impact player this year or he's gone from the team. The next obvious guy that I do think is gone from this team is Mason Rudolph. Now, that is obviously impinging upon the potential arrival of Aaron Rodgers, who's still kind of making us wait for his decision. We all expect that Rodgers is going to be here and be the starting quarterback next year. If Rodgers does not show up, then Mason Rudolph makes sense to be on the roster, maybe as your day one quarterback, because you've got two young guys who have not played it down in the NFL yet, in Will Howard and Drew Aller. But if Aaron Rodgers comes in this year, we have a coach in Mike McCarthy who is the quarterback guru who likes to mold young quarterbacks. And he's got two guys, one in a fifth-round quarterback in Will Howard last year and one in a third-round quarterback in Drew Aller this year that he wants to mold behind Rodgers. So you got your veteran starter for 1 year. You've got your two young draft pick rookies that have not played in the NFL yet. Howard was injured last year, so hasn't played in the NFL yet. And then you got a potential draft pick next year to be the third of the triumvirate when Rodgers retires. So I think we've already seen Mason Rudolph's ceiling. He had that one really good run where he took us to the playoffs a few years ago, went to Tennessee and played pretty terrible behind a pretty bad team, came back here last year, did okay in preseason but didn't overly impress. Had the one game where Rodgers got hurt, he came in and threw a pick. So I think we've seen his ceiling now. He's an older guy, getting older. Got two young guys behind him. They're not going to cut Rodgers, obviously, if he comes back to play. They're not going to cut Howard without seeing him yet, and they're not going to cut a third-round pick in Aller. So I think Mason Rudolph is the odd man out here for sure. Running back interestingly enough, man, we've got Caleb Johnson here, who, again, he was, I think, also a third-round pick last year. Only really made one big mistake, which was special teams-wise, but Pittsburgh showed they don't have a lot of faith in him. They went out last year when they had, Najee Harris leaves, and they have a kind of your 1A, 1B guy in Jaylen Warren, and they go out and they sign Kenneth Gainwell, and then wind up starting Gainwell, and so you have Gainwell and Warren as your 1A, 1B. So they go out and get another guy to jump ahead of Caleb Johnson, which showed they didn't have a ton of faith on him being kind of the 1B guy, the number 2 running back on the roster. Starting last season, Gainwell played amazing. Johnson came in on special teams to get him some reps, and he made a big mistake which cost us a touchdown, not knowing the rules. And then when he did play toward the end of the year, getting a few carries, he didn't really make the most of his carries. He was not bad by any means. He had a few decent carries, but he was nothing special, and it didn't seem like he had a ton of burst. The conversation from the locker room was that he wasn't playing. We knew he was kind of slower on tape, but he was playing slower than he seemed, and he didn't seem like he had the burst or the cuts that a running back would normally have. So they get a guy to kind of play in the spot he was going to play in. Then he makes a special teams mistake, and then he doesn't show burst. And then coming into this offseason, we lose Kenneth Gainwell, so he's got a chance to kind of be the new 1B and take over under a new coaching regime to see what he truly has. And they go and they sign Rico Dowdle. So now Rico Dowdle steps into the number 2 running back spot, and Caleb Johnson is once again at the number 3 spot. And then they go and draft Eli Heidenreich, who's going to be the biggest wild card on offense on the entire team. Heidenreich is such an unknown because he's a running back wide receiver hybrid who can return a little bit too, but mainly a running back / receiver that kind of plays both out of Navy. And it's going to be an interesting spot to see where he gets listed on the depth chart, to see where he can make a roster spot, because he's either going to be considered a running back and trying to get the 3rd running back spot off Caleb Johnson, who hasn't shown burst yet, or he's going to be at the receiver spot trying to get the 6th receiver spot. So let's talk about that now. Roman Wilson. Roman Wilson is a guy that I've been a fan of. I liked his draft pick 2 years ago, got hurt when he came out of school, came back, and was kind of like Aaron Rodgers is not a fan of this guy, talked about his speed, said that he could have all the tools and he's impressed by his physical tools, but he doesn't have, his head's not in the game. He gets in his own way. He's stubborn. Reports where he wasn't getting along with Rodgers, or he was running the wrong routes, or he wasn't learning the playbook. So his second year, which was his rookie year in effect after the injury, he didn't get on the field much, and when he did, he was not on the same page. Came in last year, looked excellent in preseason, was our best receiver in preseason, made a lot of plays, playing against some starting guys in preseason. In the regular season, Rodgers had ups and downs to say about him, wasn't always ballyhooing this guy in practice, but when he got out there, made the most of his plays, made one mistake on a fumble, tried to extend the ball for extra yards in the 4th quarter of a game we were already losing and fumbled the ball. That was his one big gaffe last year. Other than that, had some nice touchdowns, had some nice big plays downfield. Roman Wilson has looked good to me, but there's something to be said about injuries, about learning the playbook, and about getting along with his quarterback. He's had those black marks against him, and Rodgers might likely be the quarterback again this year. That being said, Wilson has shown more on the field than the other 2 guys I talked about already, Johnson and Rudolph, have so far by far. That being said, looking at our receiver room, we're likely going to keep 6 max, and we have DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman, and rookie for 2nd round pick Jeremy Bernard as your starting 3 receivers. As your backups, you got Ben Skoranek, who's a guaranteed spot for special teams as a gunner. You got Caden Weegan, who's a guaranteed special teams kick and punt returner. So you got 2 specialists taking up 2 receiver spots there. So you have a guaranteed 5 guys already on the roster. And your 6th spot is either Roman Wilson, who's got all the potential in the world but has a lot of marks against him, or Eli Heidenreich, who I think is a more natural receiver. Now, if they keep 1 less D lineman or 1 less O lineman, there's a chance they could keep 7 receivers. They could keep Heidenreich as the 7th receiver and not cut anybody out of this bunch. Roman, Heidenreich, Johnson, Weegan, they all stay, right? But chances are, if they keep an extra O or D lineman, you're stuck choosing between either Heidenreich and Caleb Johnson at running back, or if you list Heidenreich at receiver, which is where I think he belongs, you're listing Heidenreich and Roman Wilson. It's because I think Weegan stays no matter what because of returns and Skoranek stays on special teams. So you got that last spot down to Heidenreich and Roman Wilson. So Heidenreich becomes a super interesting guy because, yes, he's a 7th round vibes pick, hometown guy out of Pittsburgh. Went off to serve his country, really good vibes. But the dude's a playmaker, and the dude is good cuts, good broken tackles, can catch, can run routes. He can do everything. And for a 7th round pick, what a playmaking flyer that is. What an opportunity you have in Heidenreich, who does something different than anybody else on this roster. He gets compared to Christian McCaffrey, but if he can step in and even be an upgraded version of Scotty Miller, a more diverse Scotty Miller guy with reliable hands who can kind of get separation, can catch in traffic, can catch the ball out of the backfield, kind of a Kenneth Gainwell, Scotty Miller hybrid, then you've got a guy that could steal Roman Wilson's spot here. So that's an interesting take as well. So I've got 4 guys there on the bubble, either this year or next year. What do you think of those picks? Who starts at those positions that I talked about? And who do you think stays and goes out of those guys? And who should be our future on offense? Tell me in the comments down below. Please like, share, and subscribe to these Pittsburgh Steelers deep dives. And I'll come back next week and bring you guys some defensive battles or potential defensive guys who could be on the roster bubble and cut this preseason coming soon. Take care, guys.